Hey guys, what is up? It is Aaron from Vigilante Motors, and today I'm going to show you guys some of the most important things you want to look for before you buy that used vehicle. Now, you're going to have to bring a few things with you: a really good flashlight, a small magnet, and some paper towels. That's all you're going to need for this job. And I'm confident by the end of this video, you're going to have a lot more confidence yourself when you're going out looking at those used vehicles and what you're supposed to be looking for. So let's get right to it. The first thing you want to do is just take a walk around the vehicle, looking at it from all different directions, all different sides, making sure that it's not, dramatically sagging on the back or dramatically sagging in the front. Looking at it straight ahead, making sure it's not leaning to one side or another. Just get a good overall look of the vehicle and the condition it's in. From there, you want to start checking your body panels, looking at the gaps in the hood, in the doors, in the trunk, making sure you're looking for large gaps or misaligned body panels, which could indicate that the vehicle was in an accident and the repair job just wasn't that good. So go around the entirety of the vehicle and check all the gaps and body lines. If you think a dent may have been patched, you can use a small magnet on it. The magnet won't stick to an area with body filler. So this is a really good trick to use if you suspect a vehicle has had body damage. Rust is a real concern on any vehicle, and one of the biggest problem areas are the rocker panels. These are located below the door, so check them on all sides. Knocking on them, make sure they sound firm and solid. When you're down there, check underneath the doors. Again, another problem area. Knock on them, make sure there's no rust, sounds firm and solid. Since you have the doors open from checking the rocker panels, now's a great time to remove all the mats and all the carpeting that you can and checking the floorboards. Is the carpet wet? Is it dry? Feel it. If it's wet, you could have water hanging out there. Knock on it. Does it feel firm and solid? This is an area where rust loves to live. As you're walking around the car and it's still cool, check the tailpipe and feel it for residue. If it's black and greasy, it means burnt oil. Tailpipe residue should be dark and gray. Now that you have done a quick physical check of the body, you want to test the suspension. Go to each corner of the vehicle and push down as hard as you can. If the shocks are in good shape, the car should rebound just once and not bounce up and down. If you see bouncing of the suspension after you push down and let go, well, this is a sign of worn shocks that will need to be replaced. The next test we're going to perform is on the tire here. We're going to check the wheel bearings here. Now, I want to preface this by saying that this is not the be-all, end-all of all tests. This test is far from being perfect, but it could give you a general idea. And what you want to do is just grab both driver's side and passenger side, grab behind the tire and pull towards you back and forth, like so. You shouldn't hear anything at all. I didn't hear any clinking, any clunking, nothing. That's good. That's a sign that potentially my bearings are still good. However, if you do hear clinking and clunking, well, then you know you have a definite issue. If you're fortunate enough to be looking at a vehicle that is high off the ground and you're able to go underneath and check out the frame and all the other components, now is the time to do so. Now, if you're looking at a car and it's really low to the ground, you don't have that ability, well, you want to get down as low as you possibly can and at least try to inspect the frame rail out. Let me show you what you're looking for. The frame of your vehicle is the bones of your vehicle. Without a good frame, you just aren't going to have a good car. So make sure you look at this best you can, inspecting it for rust, and not just rust, but holes or really, really bad corrosion. And you kind of want to knock on it. Make sure it sounds solid. Similar to what we did with the body panels, you want to do the same thing on your frame and check as much as you can, not just the side that you can see, because often the rust will come from the underneath right here. So make sure you're checking the bottom and the opposite side of it well, the other side of the frame, making sure that there's no rust, no holes, and the frame itself and looks really solid. If and when you do find rust in your frame, it might look something like this. Now, this is the very, very front of the vehicle right next to the bumper. So this isn't really too much cause for concern. If that area was right here in the suspension area, well, I'd be a lot more concerned with that. But the fact that it's right in the front of the frame, the very end of the frame, this can be repaired without much problem. But this is something you want to look for. These are telltale signs that you could have an issue with other parts of the frame. All right, so now we have checked the outside of the vehicle, the underside of the vehicle. It's finally time to get inside and take it for a test drive. But before you go anywhere, there are a couple of things you want to look for. Aside from checking out the interior, make sure everything looks okay, the windows go up and down, the radio sounds great, there are some specific things that you want to test before you even start driving. First, put the vehicle in auxiliary mode. That's usually just one click forward with the key. And if you look at your dash, all of your warning lights should appear. Subsequently, after a few seconds, they should all disappear. If you have 1 or 2 warning lights that stay on, well, there's a problem with that particular area. Now, not all vehicles show warning lights in auxiliary mode. For example, this one needs to actually be turned on and running. But again, the warning lights should turn on. Subsequently, a few seconds later, they should all turn off. With the vehicle running now, you want to make sure you put in each and every gear. So reverse, drive, neutral, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is you have. Shifting through all the gears, making sure that it shifts smooth, and more importantly, that you're not hearing anything. There's no clunking going on, there's no banging going on. If there is, or the shifting is difficult, well, you could have a real serious problem with your transmission. Next, check the air conditioner. Even if it's in the middle of winter, make sure it blows really cold air. And subsequently, turn on the heater and make sure that's blowing really hot air. All right, it's finally time to test drive the vehicle, and the first thing you want to do is listen to it. So make sure you have the radio off, the air conditioning is off, everything is off, and listen to the vehicle. Does it sound okay? Do you hear grinding, squealing, banging? If you do, that's cause for concern. That means there's a problem somewhere. Remember, a quiet vehicle usually means it's a good running vehicle. After you've gone through all those really important checks, just drive the vehicle, blast the radio, have some fun with it. Give it a little speed, give it some gas. Every once in a while, you gotta feed a little speed to your ride. This is the car you're thinking about buying, so make sure that you love it. Hopefully you guys had a really good test drive, and along the way you looked at your gauges. And even if it's post-test drive, it's always important to look at the gauges. So this vehicle happens to give us tire pressure. That looks good. We look at our coolant temperature, our transmission temperature, oil pressure, oil life, and our battery voltage, all of which look really good. So make sure you take some time to scroll through these and make sure everything is in the zone that it should be. Now that we have gotten all that out of the way, it's time for us to pop the hood and start checking some fluids. The first thing we're going to check is the engine oil, and we're going to do that by pulling the engine oil dipstick. Now, this was after the test drive. That way the engine's had a chance to warm up, and you're going to get the best reading out of it. You're simply going to pull your engine oil dipstick, and you're going to look for a couple of things. With the engine oil dipstick pulled, the first thing you want to make sure is that it is full of oil. So in this particular case, we can see that the oil is up into the safe zone. That's good. You want to make sure that someone wasn't running a vehicle with really low oil. The second thing we want to look for is the color of the oil. If you notice this is kind of a honey or kind of a clear, that's good. That means the oil was just changed. If it's brown, if it's black, that's okay as well. What you don't want to see is any water bubbles mixed in with the oil or a gray or foamy oil. That would indicate it has a cracked engine block or a blown head gasket. Two serious problems. You might want to avoid this vehicle. When it's time to check the radiator, you first want to look into the plastic reservoir. Now, this is usually connected by a hose to the actual radiator itself. And the coolant should be a greenish or an orange color, or in this case, it's kind of a pink color. What you don't want to see is a milky color or a rusty color. So check the reservoir first and make sure that fluid looks okay. After you have checked the engine coolant reservoir, you want to move over to the actual radiator itself and pull the cap to make sure that it looks, again, the same color as the engine coolant reservoir did. Now, I want to preface this by saying that make sure you do this while the engine is cool, because radiator fluid gets really hot, and this is a pressurized cap. So if you go to open this while the engine is hot, there's a good chance you can get burnt pretty bad, so be careful. Now, when we pull this cap, we're going to look at this particular vehicle, and we're going to see that this coolant is not one of the colors that we want it to be. It's actually a brown. It's kind of rusty and brown. That means if you pull that and happens in the car you're looking at, well, that radiator needs flushed. That fluid needs completely changed out. Something you want to keep in mind. Next, we're going to check brake fluid. So you want to locate the brake master cylinder and make sure that the fluid is at the full line. Then you want to take a clean rag, wipe the top off so we don't get any contaminants inside, and look at the fluid itself. It should be clear. If it is a dark brown, that means you need to flush the brakes and get all new fluid in them. Next, we're going to check power steering fluid. You want to pull this and make sure it's at the fill line as well, and inspect the color. It should be red. If it's dark brown or black, that means it's contaminated and you're going to have to flush your system to put all new power steering fluid inside. Next up is hoses and belts, and you want to check them for any cracking or any fraying. Squeeze them. They shouldn't be rock hard, but they really shouldn't be very mushy either, somewhere in the middle. Moving on to the belt, you want to make sure there's no cracking or fraying in the belts. And the same thing as the hoses. When you push them, they're not rock hard, but they're also not really super loose. Let's quickly talk transmissions. Now, this is a manual gearbox, and manuals, for the most part, do not have a dipstick anywhere in the engine bay in order for you to check the manual transmission fluid. You'd have to go underneath the vehicle and check it. That's the only way to do it. This is an automatic transmission, but nowadays they're coming with what they call sealed units. So when you have a sealed unit, that means even though it's an automatic, there still is no dipstick in the engine bay for you to pull and look. If you have an automatic that does happen to have a transmission fluid dipstick, you can check. By all means, do so. And there's a few things you want to look for. It should be the color pink and it should smell like oil. If you pull the transmission dipstick and it's brown and smells like burnt oil, well, you probably have a real problem with the transmission. Might be something you want to take to a mechanic to have them look at first. And that is it, guys. It is really that simple. Just spending about 10 minutes going over the vehicle before you decide to purchase it could save you a lot of headaches in the end. So if you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button. Helps out the channel a lot. And subscribe. That way you never miss the weekly video uploads. My name is Aaron. This is Vigilante Motors. Till next time, y'all. Peace.